Are the Sony Xperia Pro I good? Sony's Xperia Pro I, the company's first smartphone, is Sony's most meaningful marriage of imaging and mobile devices yet. In addition, it's a great camera phone that'll likely appeal to enthusiasts who don't need Apple. Sony's very traditional photo processing puts it out of reach for most people, as does the fact that it lacks features like wireless charging and a periscope camera. Sony's flagship phones, like the Xperia 1 III, have always been aimed at photographers. Sony was sticking to its guns while Apple, Google, and Huawei were adding shadows and making evenings look like mornings. Sony phones will make a dramatic silhouette when you take a backlit photo. It'll look like nighttime if you shoot at midnight. Sony Xperia Pro I is a good phone overall. There's a lot of Sony in the design, as well as premium metal and glass. Plus, it has a shutter release and a textured frame. You'll love its punchy, sharp screen, even if it's a little dull in direct sunlight. Sony's UI is generally clean and not too different from stock Android. Wireless charging is the main thing missing from the Xperia Pro I. It has flagship power, 512GB storage, SD card support and nippy 5G data speeds. Sony's Xperia Pro I costs $1,799 in the US and £1,599 in the UK. The availability in Australia isn't confirmed yet, but it's about $2,600 to import. Sony's second Pro Series phone will launch in December 2021, with a new camera system. Black, 512GB, only. There's a $400/£200 difference between the Sony Xperia Pro I and the 512GB iPhone 13 Pro Max. There's a chamfer around the front and back of the phone, which is sandwiched between two sheets of glass, Gorilla Glass 6 on the back and Victus on the front. With IP68 certification, the Xperia Pro I is water resistant, unlike the Pro. The Pro I's frame has a groove around it, so Sony made it easier to grip than metal-framed phones. With more surface to grip, you get a better tactile experience, as well as a visual one. A centered camera surrounds the back. In the middle there's the primary camera, and below it there's a telephoto, portrait, camera. The matte glass back feels a lot more premium than the original Xperia Pro, and the satin finish reminds me of what Samsung and Apple do best. The top of the Xperia Pro I comes with a 3.5mm headphone jack, while the bottom is home to a USB-C port. There's more to USB-C than just data and charging. You can use it as an external camera monitor with the right adapter, which makes the original Xperia Pro superfluous. On the right side you'll find a volume rocker, a fingerprint scanner/power button combo, a shortcut key, and a camera button. With a 120Hz refresh rate, the Xperia Pro I's display is a 10-bit OLED panel. The display is already great, and it supports HDR and BT.2020 color spaces, so it's on par with old Sony Pros. It's also great for filmmakers. In terms of clarity, nothing out of the Sony camp can match it, though you're more likely to see a virtual resolution of 1096 by 2560 than a true 4K image, especially when you're navigating its interface. In reality it's closer to a 1/1.33 inches sensor than the 1.0 type Exmor RS sensor used in the Xperia Pro I. While still huge for smartphones, it has a pixel size of 2.4 compared to the 12MP sensor on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which has 1.9 micrometers pixels. The Nokia PureView 808-spin pixels are smaller, but the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra's oversampled sensor has larger individual pixels, making it the largest smartphone sensor on the market. You can also set the Xperia Pro I's primary camera to f/2 or f/4. On the secondary camera end, there's a 12MP, 0.5-inch, f/2.2, 16mm ultra-wide, and a 12MP, 0.9-inch, f/2.4, 50mm portrait, 2x zoom. Wise on the main camera and portrait lens. Sony's cameras take classically beautiful, natural-looking photos. We'd have expected to see a similar style of photos in a photography magazine back in the 80s or 90s. You don't get the boosted shadows and brightened up dark spots on Galaxy or Pixel photos because Sony's processing has a healthy contrast. With a shutter speed of 2 seconds on ISO 100, and steady with a tripod, the camera can capture a lot of information. JPEGs downplay shadows, but RAWs show more detail. Xiaomi's shallow depth of field is sometimes overkill with its slightly smaller sensor and variable aperture, so you're not forced to capture bokeh. Although the Mi 11 Ultra's secondary camera is better, the Xperia Pro I's processing is more natural. All three cameras work across all three apps on the Xperia Pro I, which is awesome. You can get some awesome footage if you feed them balanced lighting. I like the way the colors look on the camera. In the editing suite we were able to save a lot of shadow details, not bad for a phone. Using the wide-angle camera, however, produces a lot of noise, especially in dark areas. The 8MP selfie camera isn't much to look at. The camera is the same 1/4-inch sensor we saw on the Xperia 1 3 years ago, paired with a 24mm f/2 fixed focus lens. As a front camera, it's fine, video calls and casual selfies are fine, but we mostly avoided them. It costs $200 or £169, and Sony makes an external monitor for vlogging, so you can take better selfies with the rear camera. With its latest Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset and 12GB of RAM, the Pro I is different from the original Xperia Pro. There's also plenty of storage, 512GB, and you can expand it with a microSD card. Android 11 isn't the newest version of Google's OS, but Sony has historically been good about updating their phones, so Android 12 and Android 13 are on the way. In our Geekbench 5 testing, the Xperia 1 III scored 3,474, which is right up there with a top-end phone in 2021. In comparison, the Samsung Galaxy S21 scored 3,367, and the OnePlus 9 Pro scored 3,630. Xperia 1 III and Pro I both have the same battery, so you'll get more of the same great battery life. In spite of the Pro's 4500 mAh battery, its 21:9 screen has less surface area than some other phones. Still, it'll need a charge every night, especially if you use it a lot. We had around 20% to 30% of the battery left after a full working day, so if you turn it off at night and are careful, you might get 2 days, but you'll probably get 1. The phone charges up to 30 watts, and the charger charges at 50% in 30 minutes. It's not the fastest charging we've seen, but it beats Apple's standard charging speed. Unfortunately, the Pro I doesn't support wireless charging. Considering the tech is in the Xperia 1 III, and how common it is now, with charging spots in coffee shops and furniture everywhere, this is a real puzzler.